Hello, everybody, and welcome to Personal Training Unlocked. It is your host, Matt Mangol. You might be noticing a bit of an absence here as we go along. Josh Shernoff is otherwise engaged. It is me, Matthew Mangol, your certified strength and conditioning specialist, who is going rogue today, solo, if you will, on our Roadcaster Pro. And the student, I guess, has sort of become a quarter of the teacher here. I got this going myself on a micro SD card. I'm pretty proud of myself. We'll see if this and what Josh can do is magic with the editing. But anyway, we're here. Welcome. This is episode number 10. This week, we're talking about isometric, concentric, and eccentric types of muscle contraction. The three types of muscle contraction, but a little pin in this for a moment. Let's just go back to next week, a little follow-up. So in last week's episode, we talked about training your planes. It's a topic that people don't talk about much, but we did as much as we could in a fairly concise fashion. Training your planes, we talked about the sagittal plane, we talked about the frontal plane, we talked about the rotational or transverse plane. Including those three planes of movement in your exercise regimen, try and incorporate some each day you work out, or at least throughout the week, those are accounted for. Just briefly to touch upon that again, I welcome you to go back to last week if you didn't have a chance to check it out. Please, as always, we'd love it if you could share with people you know and we can expand our audience and maybe find other people that have questions and want to kind of get in on this. We're trying to be your concierge service for personal training, and with 23 years experience, I am here for you, but I can only be here for you if you are knowledgeable and aware of our podcast. So please spread that word. We really appreciate that. As well as also always on Apple, please leave a 5-star review. That'd be tremendous. It'll help us kind of bump up in the searches for people. But we talked about a number of times, but we also revisited last week the fact that you need to train your body the way you start. And this time of year we're in now, December, heading towards the holiday on the fast track. You really have to start with doing something different, which is tricky. As far as just 10 minutes of something a day would be a good way to start being active if your job is not active and outside of the job you are not active. 10 minutes of walking every day. Do that for 3 weeks, then change things up to something else. Pattern for the first 3 weeks. That's the hardest thing. If you need to track it on a calendar, you need to track it on an app. You need to track it with somebody who's your workout buddy, right? Keep each other on top of things and keep each other accountable when the other one doesn't want to do it. 10 minutes a day. Do that for a month. You're going to be having a great start ahead of the game. But we talked about when you exercise and you're getting back into working out, regardless of your exercise experience from before, muscle memory from before, or if you've never worked out before, one of the things you have to think about, and the easiest way to start is, okay, what is my body position through most of the day? What is my work position throughout most of the day? Am I sitting in flexion? Am I on my feet all day? What you need to think about is, what are those movement patterns or those muscle groups that are not engaged all day? What can I do to engage those? A lot of times they're your opposing muscle groups for what you're used throughout the day. So if you're sitting in flexion most of the time, you're going to, instead of, when you're in that flex position, your hip flexors they tighten up and shorten, your quads tighten up and shorten. Your calves get tight from not being on your feet a lot. Your back gets tight from being rounded versus extended, right, and contracted. Your chest pectoral tendons, right, the connection of your chest muscle, main chest muscle, goes underneath kind of where the deltoid muscle is on the shoulder and connects to that joint there. Those tendons get tight and bring you rounded shoulders, bring your chest tighter forward. Being in that flexed forward position and flexed together position with the chest, having that prolonged rounded mid-back area, and that makes you elevate and use your upper trapezius muscle, that area at the base of your neck, the top of your back area, and that gets tight, your neck gets tight, right? We end up with this hunched, kind of quarter hunched or half hunched position. So, okay, what can you do? Instead of being focused on my core and doing crunches, which just reinforces that flex position, I'm going to do low back extensions. I'm going to do a plank, which has some isometric tension in it, which we'll talk about today, but uses your back and your abdominals in a way that's an extension versus flexion. I'm going to work my hamstring muscles instead of being on the leg curl machine, which is just reinforcing the flexed position that it saw all day in the sitting position, I'm going to do things with my legs straight. So maybe I'm going to do some stiff-legged deadlifts. I'm going to do some Romanian deadlifts. I am going to do, I'm going to go into the hyperextension machine in the gym where I anchor my legs. My front of my hips are on the pads. I bend forward into space, and then I extend up to a diagonal line, flexing my low back. But I'm getting that stretch in the hamstrings. I'm getting that work in the hamstrings secondarily in extension on the way up. Being creative with your progressions and your movement pattern choices, and that's where I come in. So feel free anytime to go at PT Unlocked on Instagram, at PT Unlocked on X. Please always feel free to reach out with whatever you have question-wise to ptunlocked@gmail.com. That's ptunlocked@gmail.com. I want to help out. Only way I can is if you ask the questions. With countering the workday again, upper body wise, all right, I'm going to do some rowing with my back. Maybe that includes the rowing machine, which is more the cardio option. It should include some of the seated rows for muscle work, maybe lat pull down, all of which retracts the shoulder blades down, retracts the shoulder blades back and down versus allowing you to elevate the shoulder blades up, which reinforces the pattern you saw through the workday and your traps. You're stretching your chest through a doorway stretch, versus adding flexion with like some kind of a fly. There's all these little tricks. Do the opposite stuff that you need to do in the gym to counter your workday. That's the place to start. Have questions, we can kind of really build that out. But that's just kind of what we got into last week. And training your planes, we do most of our work and our everyday activities in the sagittal plane. But let's incorporate purposefully, because we don't see it every day. Let's make sure we have something in the frontal plane for our upper body and something in the frontal plane for our lower body. As far as the transverse plane or the twisting plane, right, or rotational plane, we don't see a lot of that throughout the day unless we don't see a lot of that unless we really make an effort to do that. So we should incorporate something like that in our workouts. So something rotational, upper body versus lower body versus upper body. Just things to think about. Train your planes, very important in structuring your program. Countering the workday, very important in structuring your program. And then we have today, finally. So this episode is talking about the 3 types of muscle contraction. You've heard of them. We're just going to kind of give you the snippets of what they are, ideas of how you can use them. Obviously, there's going to be more what we can't get into. We're trying to keep these episodes tight and short and sweet so you can fit them into your day. We want you to be that third person in our conversation, just kind of listening in, right? Getting our conversation to spark some questions in your mind, to reach out and let us know where you're at and how we can help you. So first one is isometric tension and contraction. Is basically, it's a type of muscle contraction where the muscle tightens without a length change. Okay. So if you think of a bodybuilder, be it natural or pro, or somebody flexing, which we've seen plenty of times, who hasn't gone down some kind of made the mistake of watching a reel for more than 3 seconds or something on TikTok for more than 3 seconds and the algorithm shifts. And then you're watching posing routines and you're watching this and then you're watching that. And you've seen these flexed positions. So the kind of fists towards each other, bent forward position, flex, the standing bicep flex, right? The holding one hand, arm against the side of the body, side facing the front camera, looking at the camera, smiling, and they're flexing their bicep, then they're extending their arm for the tricep. We've all seen those positions. So you're contracting the muscle and maintaining that contraction, but then there's really no visible external work happening. Internally, the muscle areas that you're using for that sustained contraction, from superficial to deep, you're recycling the fatigue from the most superficial layer, deeper and deeper and deeper throughout the length of that hold of that sustained tension to the point of fatigue, sometimes cramping if you're dehydrated or you've been in that state for a lot. But it's a way you can use to strengthen muscles. It's an old school method that has really never gone away, but it's gotten more of a new school attention. Isometric tension can be utilized as long as we're not trying to have an aneurysm by going full bore. if you're smoothly going into that tension and maintaining a tension you can hold while breathing, very important, you need to have that oxygen. Oxygen, I know reading is fundamental, but breathing is more fundamental. So breathing is fundamental, could be something to take away from the isometric type movements. We think of isometric as like a flex. Let's say you're doing your hands against the wall, you're leaning into the wall, you're pushing against that wall as strong as you can with flexed arms. You're getting max work in kind of that wall sustained isometric push-up, but you don't see the wall moving, hopefully, otherwise you better get the hell out of there. But there's no external work happening, but obviously internally there's work happening and the person gets to the point of fatigue. A plank, high plank on the hands, low plank on the elbows, 17,000 other variations. The core idea of that is you're in a position where gravity wants you to get to the floor. It wants you to be on the floor as fast as possible. You controlling that work, which isometrically you're contracting your rectus abdominis area on the front sheath there of the trunk area, the deep abdominal area, whilst countering that force with the lower lumbar musculature, almost like an accordion, where you're kind of breathing out to activate the inner core, tightening that abdominal wall, and then conversely pressing down against from the top, like a sandwich, the low back muscles, creating that tension, maintaining that tension while breathing, right? And someone's timing for a minute, or you're doing some movement with the legs and movement with the arms, maintaining that. But the hallmark is that control from the core, the isometric trunk work, and you can move the arms, move the legs, do this, do that. There's 1,000 things you can do. But the idea is the isometric work. Very effective as a lead-in to other work for that area, or a perfect way to end a workout in that area. In the sense of, if I've done other core activities, maybe I finish with some planks, right? So we can get into that, workout structure another time, some ideas of where to go, or reach out and I'll give you ideas. So isometric tension. Now let's say you do a wall squat, back against the wall, feet out in front of you. You sit down to a 90-degree angle, keeping your hips, low back, shoulder blades against the wall, holding for a minute. You'd be surprised. Your legs are going to be rocking and you're going to want to fall out of that by the end of it. And you kind of have to push off the wall with your hands to stand up and walk that out. Lactic acid creation is a big hallmark of isometric work in the quads, hamstrings, and glutes for that exercise. Now, as far as the next one, concentric, we're kind of familiar with that. We automatically go to like curl, a bicep curl, right? There's that resistance through now muscle contraction with when a muscle contraction, basically it's when a muscle contraction shortens while producing tension. So a bicep curl. Okay. So you have that weight in your palm, you're curling on the way up. You got, really gauge that tension on the way up, max that out, and then control on the way down. For that movement is concentric because your muscle is providing tension, producing tension through the shortening process. For the hamstrings, a leg curl. For the quadricep muscles, leg extension. For shoulders, side raise, front raise, arm extension for the triceps, skull crushers, dips. It's in everything. It's in every movement you do. There's a component of that even in isometrics. Okay. Now, the other side of that is eccentric. Eccentric is where the muscle lengthens while under resistance. So that, it's always, the idea is there's always some isometric, but there might be a predominance of eccentric battling concentric. A squat. Okay, you're squatting down. Your quadricep muscles are getting lengthened through tension, right? Your hamstrings, conversely, are getting flexed through tension. And the glutes, some of those are doing each. And then as you ascend back up, you're now extending your hamstrings, eccentric, and then you're contracting your quadricep muscles in flexion, concentric. So there's a yin and a yang of the exercises for the most part, which are going to include eccentric and concentric. Now, obviously, there's an emphasis based upon the movement you've chosen or the exercise you're doing. It might be more predominance concentric or more predominance eccentric. Eccentric, the lengthening guys with resistance, that tends to exhaust you a little bit more. People are familiar with that through the negative sets. So let's say you're using a little heavier weight for a bicep curl. Again, just going back to that familiar exercise. Instead of you curling it up and then managing it on the way down, your spotter assists you, helps you curl that up, and then your job is to resist it on the way down as it lengthens. When arm gets all the way down to fully lengthened, they help you pull that back up again and to the point of fatigue. You're going to get there probably 4 or 5 reps. Whereas the concentric, you might be able to go 10, 12, 15. So it's more exhaustive, and theoretically your muscles are stronger in lengthen versus in shorten. But that workout's pretty taxing and you're going to be pretty sore the next day. So it's good to have a mixture of isometric, good to have a mixture of concentric, and good to have a mixture of eccentric exercises in both your daily workout regimens, your weekly, definitely your weekly regimen. You could have a workout that's more concentric upper body, eccentric lower body, and vice versa. You can mix and match. There's so many things you can do. You want to stay intense as you can be with where you are in your fitness journey. But at the same time, it's got to be calculated. You have to have some kind of strategy. Look, you don't have to be crunching all these numbers and stuff. Just keep it simple. The biggest thing is that it gets done. Something gets done, and that something gets done frequently, and that something gets done more regularly and consistently so that you start to feel differences and your body starts to shift, realizing that, hey, look, I need to reprogram. This ain't working for me, and I need to adapt to this. And once you're at that place and you kind of get familiar with where you are and where you can push, think about how liberating that is. That is just so, it just opens the door to new worlds, you know? And when you get there, that is an awesome place to be. And look, I would love to not only be your guide on there, I would love to be your workout concierge. I've got 23 years of experience in physical therapy and personal training and all kinds of fitness things. I'm on here because there's people out there that are curious about what they should be doing based upon where they're at now, not where they were at 20 years ago. Everything changes all the time. Change is inevitable. We don't have to like it, but we need to embrace it. And one way to embrace it is look at it as a challenge to get better, to evolve as a person, but also just, you know, if your body can do what it's supposed to do and you can take it beyond that and start to open doors of places that you can go to that you didn't think you could get there, that's awesome. You don't need medicines. You don't need this other stuff. You can take care of yourself. You just need a little guidance along the way, kind of like you're driving. It's like a pilot. You could be the best pilot in the world. You have a great co-pilot, this and that. But regardless of the weather, when you're trying to land, you have those guiding strips. You have that lighted runway. You know where you're trying to go, and you make that touchdown. I want to help you on that. I want to help you make that touchdown and get from destination to destination the way you need to, not how everyone else needs to, but my job is to help you get where you want to be and what's that next step for you. And then when you get there, what's that next step for you? So reach out, ptunlocked@gmail.com, at ptunlocked on Instagram, at ptunlocked on X. And look, here we go. We're going to be entering TikTok world. That's right. We have ourselves an official TikTok. I got the external hard drive arriving tomorrow so that I can dump and copy all the stuff off my phone. So I have full capacity to create for you, by me, for you, and to get more people knowing about us and reaching out to us. So look, I'm loving this. I missed Josh today, and hopefully, no one's snoring on the other end of this. We've kind of kept it short and sweet, but wanted to touch base and, we can still make this happen because you're out there and we're here, and I got to get out there and connect with you, and I got to keep putting content out for you. And along those lines, what do you want to know about? What are you curious about? Reach out, ask questions, send me something via Gmail, please. Send us topics. I'm going to put out a poll this week. Look for it. Please respond to it. And so it gives us a direction of how we can best help with where people are right now on this fast track to the holidays. So as always, it's Matt Mangol, your certified strength and conditioning specialist and your workout concierge. ptunlocked@gmail.com. You can do it. Let's get ready for the new year. Take care of yourself. You do you. And keep on lifting. See you next time on Personal Training Unlocked.